Welcome all American football lovers back to the US Football News Channel. Our content is produced by 24 Hours Online Media. Today we will start with the following notable content. What a weekend, folks. We just witnessed college football chaos in its purest form. And let me tell you, it's going to leave the College Football Playoff Selection Committee up late, tossing and turning. Why? Because the decision they have to make after Clemson's last-second ACC championship win over SMU is downright brutal. And guess what? It all comes down to one gigantic question. Who gets the final playoff spot, SMU or Alabama? Now, before you say, "Oh, come on, Alabama's got to be in," just hang tight. Let's break down what's at stake here and why Dabo Swinney, head coach of the Clemson Tigers, might just be onto something when he says, SMU better be in the dang playoffs. Yes, you heard it right. Dabo Swinney is lobbying for SMU. And that's something I never thought I'd see in my life. But here we are, folks, in the weirdest year of playoff expansion. Strap in, this is going to get good. A historic ACC championship, and maybe a new Cinderella story. Let's set the scene. We're deep into the ACC championship game, and Clemson is facing off against the SMU Mustangs. You could feel the energy in the air. Clemson needed to win big to stay in playoff contention. And SMU was hoping to hang on to their playoff hopes and show that they were more than just a feels good, but not quite their team. Clemson, under Swinney, has had a roller coaster of a season. At one point, they looked more like a team that was ready for a vacation than one ready for playoff football. A crushing loss to Georgia to kick off the season? Check. A mid-season meltdown at the hands of Louisville? You bet. A shocking home loss to South Carolina just last week? Oh, and don't forget the whispers around Swinney's job security. But after a dramatic win against SMU, a nail-biting, heart-stopping, I need a heart rate monitor victory, the Tigers are officially back in the playoff conversation. With a walk-off 56-yard field goal from freshman kicker Nolan Hausa, who was probably feeling like he had just won the lottery, and may have needed a defibrillator after the ride. Clemson clinched the ACC title and, in a very real sense, their own playoff berth. The celebration that erupted at Bank of America Stadium? Unbelievable. Fans were going wild, coaches were hugging, and Dabo Swinney was practically glowing. The guy looked like he had just won the Powerball. But here's where it gets spicy. Dabo didn't just talk about how awesome Clemson was. Oh no. He turned around and gave a shout out to SMU, who had just been knocked out in one of the most dramatic ways possible. He looked straight into the ESPN camera and said, SMU better be in the dang playoffs. Yes, you read that right. After winning his own conference, Dabo Swinney's message wasn't about his own team. It was about the Mustangs. It's a bold move, and honestly, it's one we rarely see. Coaches don't often go out of their way to lobby for the team that just lost to them. But Dabo Swinney isn't your typical coach. He's got flair, he's got energy, and now he's got some serious firepower behind his words. So, what's the big deal with SMU? Let's break it down. SMU, the team that almost was. SMU entered the ACC championship game ranked number 8 in the country. They were the darlings of the season, the Cinderella story no one saw coming. Ranked in the top 10, they were the team everyone thought could maybe, just maybe, sneak their way into the college football playoff. But to do so, they had to avoid getting steamrolled by Clemson. Unfortunately, that's exactly what almost happened. At halftime, the Mustangs were down 24-7. The comeback seemed impossible. But folks, you can never count out a team that has "never say die" written all over them. SMU, led by quarterback Kevin Jennings, roared back in the second half. Jennings threw for 304 yards and completed 31 passes, a Herculean effort. They tied the game with 16 seconds left, sending the crowd into a frenzy and leaving Clemson's fate hanging in the balance. But then, in a truly heartbreaking twist, Clemson responded. Adam Randall's clutch 41-yard kick return gave the Tigers just enough time to set up for that game-winning 56-yard field goal. As time ticked away, Hausa made it count, and SMU's playoff dreams were dashed in the blink of an eye. Now, I know what you're thinking. SMU lost. They were this close to pulling off the impossible. But shouldn't that count for something? Coach Rhett Lashlee certainly thinks so. He made an impassioned argument after the game, telling reporters, "It would be criminal if we're not in. It would be wrong not just to our team, but to what college football stands for." Lashlee, his players, and many fans of the Mustangs are shaking their heads, wondering if it's all over for them. Did they lose, or did they show that they deserved to be in the playoff despite the defeat? The dilemma: SMU versus Alabama. Let's get down to the real question: SMU or Alabama? Who gets that coveted playoff spot? Let's compare these two contenders. SMU, 11-2, they have 0 wins over top 25 teams. Their strength of schedule is ranked 75th. They've lost to top 20 teams. But let's not forget they made it to the ACC championship and fought till the very end. A lot of folks are asking, why penalize them for playing an extra game? Alabama, 9-3, the Crimson Tide's strength of schedule is ranked 18th. They have 2 top 15 wins but also suffered 2 defeats to unranked teams, including a brutal 24-3 loss to Oklahoma. Alabama's case seems solid, but it's hard to ignore that SMU played one more game and showed grit, while Alabama was sitting at home, licking their wounds. So here we are, stuck in the great SEC versus non-SEC debate. Do you reward Alabama for their history and tough schedule? Or do you recognize the gutsy, near-perfect season SMU put together? It's a tough call, and the College Football Playoff Committee will have to get this one just right. What's at stake? The future of college football playoff decisions. Here's where things get really interesting. The committee's decision will not only affect SMU and Alabama but could also change the way the college football playoff looks at conference championship games in the future. If SMU gets pushed out of the playoff despite their valiant effort, what message does that send? Does it mean that losing a championship game will always be the nail in the coffin, no matter how close or competitive the game was? But if the committee includes SMU, it could open up the conversation about conference championships. Should they really be the ultimate deciding factor for playoff spots? Would that mean fewer teams from the SEC automatically getting in? Well, that's a conversation for another time. But it's a big one, and one that could set the tone for years to come. What's next? The countdown to the selection. As the College Football Playoff Committee meets in their cozy conference room, the clock is ticking. Who will get that final spot? Will they give it to Alabama? Or will SMU's valiant run continue? It's a decision that could change the trajectory of college football forever. Stay tuned, folks. We're only a few hours away from knowing the answer. Will SMU's heart and hustle be enough to squeeze them into the expanded 12-team playoff? Or will Alabama's pedigree and schedule win out? Either way, you can bet your bottom dollar that this decision is going to be one of the most talked about in college football history. Hey, if you enjoyed this breakdown of all the playoff madness, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. It's a wild ride, and we're just getting started. Catch you next time for more college football madness. What's up, college football fans? It's your favorite armchair quarterback back at it again. And today we're talking about something that's been on everyone's minds: the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. Yeah, that bunch of folks who basically decide who gets the chance to fight for the national title. But are they doing it right? Is there a better way? Grab your popcorn, because things are about to get wild. Now, we all know that college football is like the NFL's crazy cousin who shows up at family reunions, drinks too much soda, and starts arguing about rankings. And when the season is on the line, and the stakes are higher than ever, the CFP committee gets to work, throwing out rankings and selections like they're preparing for a high-stakes fantasy football draft. But let's be real, it's not all sunshine and touchdowns. The origins of the selection committee. Let's rewind a little bit, shall we? Back in 2014, the CFP committee had to make one of its first big calls. Who gets the last spot in the playoffs? TCU, Baylor, or Ohio State? Well, they picked Ohio State, and the world went bananas. People were so mad they started sending letters and probably a few pizzas to the committee members, I'm sure. Fast forward to 2016, and the committee made another controversial decision. They picked Washington from the Pac-12 over Big Ten champions Penn State. Yikes. Dan Radakovich, Miami's athletic director, was actually on that committee when these decisions went down. But now, it's Radakovich's own team, Miami, who is sitting on the outside looking in. Despite being 10-2 and ranked number 12, Radakovich's Hurricanes have been left on the chopping block as the CFP selection committee gets ready to make its final picks. Imagine that, being in the room when these tough calls